Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we will complete the few remaining functions which are present in our web crawler. So the first thing which we are going to learn is that we are going to understand how this crawler is actually going to work. So the main part to consider here is nothing but these number of threads. So what this number of threads actually are is the number of processes which are going to run simultaneously. So you could imagine that the same code which we have written is going to execute 8 times simultaneously, and that is actually going to speed up the execution of our code. And we are going to do that by using a concept of threading. So what threading actually allows you to do is that it basically allows you to create a number of threads, and by threads I mean processes. So you could create multiple processes and each process is going to run on its own. So here what we are going to do is that we are actually going to create a function which is called as workers, and those workers are nothing but they are actually going to be thread. And for those workers we are actually going to create a job, and that job is actually going to be contained in a particular function. So whenever we call that jobs function, it's actually going to start creating those jobs, and then the workers are actually going to complete those jobs. And the jobs are basically to nothing but crawl a particular website and gather links from it. So even before doing that, what we need to do is that we actually need to define a function which is going to be called as crawl function. So what this crawl function is going to do is that it's going to get all the files from the queue file, which is nothing but this file right here. So it would include all the files which still needed to be crawled. So it's going to take those files in a particular set or in a particular variable, and it's actually going to check if those queued links are greater than 0. That means if that particular file has some links, so if it has those links, then we are going to start creating those jobs which the workers are going to do. So let's first define the crawl function. So let's type in def crawl over here, and the first thing which we got to do is that we need to get the number of links or the links from the queue file and store it into some variable. So let's take a variable as queued links. So we type queued links equals, and that is going to be file to set, and we are going to convert or make the conversion from the queue file, which is going to contain all the links which needs to be crawled. So once we have this thing, the next thing is to basically check if these number of links are greater than 0. That means there are actually some links present in this queue file, because if there are no links present in this queue file, that means we don't need to crawl anything. So make sure that you check the number of links even before you write any code. So simply type in if len, and we are going to check for the length of queued links. So that means if queued links are greater than 0, which means there are still some links remaining to be crawled. So what we are going to do here is that if this thing happens, what we want to do is that we basically want to display the number of links available in the queue. So we type print, and here just convert it into a string and just simply take the length of the queued links. So we are essentially displaying the same number over here, and we say that these many links are actually present in the queue. So we type in here links in the queue. Okay, so once this thing is done, what we want to do now is that we basically want to start jobs or create jobs so that the workers could actually work on those jobs and complete them. So we are going to define a function which is going to be called as create jobs. So we type create jobs over here. So what this create jobs function is going to do is that it's actually going to first take the file or take the link from the queue file, and then it's actually going to put that thing in the queue, and after putting that thing in the queue, it's actually going to call in the crawl function, which is actually going to crawl our entire website. So it's essentially again going to crawl this website right here. So let's go ahead and build this create job functions. So let me just go here, and let's type in def create underscore jobs. So now we have this function, and in this function the first thing which we do is that we take up a for loop to kind of extract each and every link. So we type for link in, and that is going to be file to set, and we basically want the links from the queue file. And once we have these links, we need to put them in a queue. So we type queue dot put links. So once these things are in the link, you need to execute the join function to join those links into the queue. So we type queue dot join over here, and finally we actually need to call in this function, which is nothing but the crawl function. So again, you type in crawl, and that's eventually going to call this function. So this process is going to continue unless and until all the queues are actually traversed. Okay, so once this thing is done, the next task is to actually go ahead and create threads. So we are going to do that in the next lecture. But one more thing which I would like to point out over here is that I actually made some mistake in one of the lectures. So if you actually go to Spider, and if you go over here, as you could see, I have written here text.html, and that should actually be text/html instead of a dot. So make sure that you notice this changes and make this change right over here, or else your code is not going to work. Okay, so once this thing is done, in the next lecture we will be writing 2 more final functions, which is nothing but to create the workers and to finally do the work. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.